Hello, everyone. I'm Darien Gold, and welcome to All Things Pilates, Season 7. In this season, you'll hear inspiring stories about the healing power of Pilates and from teachers around the world who will share how they're helping to make Joseph Pilates' wish come true by bringing more attention to the gift he left us. Contrology, transforming bodies one studio and one country at a time. With us today is Vineet Buch, a master's long-distance runner, kayaker, and cyclist. You could say that Vineet is obsessed with being fit, but when he was introduced to the Contrology system, it was a game changer. Like a moth to light, Vineet already has integrated this method into his training program. And it didn't take many lessons for him to understand the immensity of what it means to not just be fit, but Pilates fit. As he recently stated, I should have done this 30 years ago. Welcome to the show, Vineet.
Thanks, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Vineet, when did your obsession with athletics begin, and which sport caught your heart first?
I can't recall a time when I wasn't into being active. I guess the very first sport I got into as sort of an organized athletic activity was soccer. This is back in India when I was in primary school. And I just loved the movement, the athleticism, just being able to make mind and body work together.
Were you natural?
No, actually, as it turns out, I am blessed with good endurance, but not very good coordination. So actually, I realized I was only any good at soccer because I could outrun everybody else. So I was like, let's forget about the ball. Let's just focus on running. And that's how I actually got into running back in high school.
Nice. And you didn't, even as a youngster, did you have any models around you, or was this just come to you?
Well, this was India. This is back in the 1980s.
What does that mean for those of us who don't know India?
So India has never, so the only sport most Indians cared about then and probably care about even now is cricket. And I was not a cricketer. There just wasn't a culture of overall being athletic, of being into something like running. Even soccer was seen more as recreation than as kind of a competitive sport. And so, in fact, no, I mean, this was all my passion for sports, especially for endurance sports. It came from within me. It was really, we're talking about an era before the internet. We didn't actually even have cable TV. So I'm talking about just what made my body feel good, what made my mind come alive. It is all totally internal motivation.
And then your heart, mind, and body came alive again, but differently when you were introduced to the Pilates method. How did that show up?
So I'll have to say that I'd heard of Pilates, obviously. I'd seen Pilates studios. I'd never really considered it as an activity that would be suitable for me because I did stuff outdoors.
Let's hear it. Because why? Because why?
Well, first of all, I did stuff outdoors. Secondly, I did stuff where you went from place to place. You didn't just stay in one little room. I mean, I have been doing yoga for a long time, but I've been doing yoga just to keep my body a little limber. I have not been doing yoga as sort of a dedicated athletic activity. Years ago, I'm talking like maybe 11 years ago, I did try a Pilates reformer class because I had some shoulder injuries from rock climbing. And I was totally underwhelmed. I was like, I don't understand. This is like weight training, but with lighter resistance. Like, why am I doing this?
Oh.
And then a friend of mine Diane, who's a student of yours, and she was like, no, this would really help your running. You should check it out. I'm like, okay, if you say so. So I'm very sort of grudging, like, well, I'll take any edge I can to get better at my sport, so I'll give it a shot. And frankly, just the very first lesson was transformative because it was, first of all, it is not resistance training.
Oh.
Pilates is about what really, and when I do my running, my biking, my kayaking, I'm very cognizant of the way I move, but Pilates takes that to a whole other level. It's a level of consciousness of movement and of being aware of how small changes in posture and alignment and where your mind is focused, how they make a difference to the overall feeling and efficiency of the activity. I mean, that just really called out to me. And if I had to sort of draw an analogy here, I would say that Pilates combines the precision and mindset of rock climbing with the training that your body gets from endurance sports. So it takes the essence of and the best of many different activities and distills it into one set of movements and into a mindset and into an approach to how you do them that has been truly transformative to me.
But you don't recognize this work as resistance training per se based on all your other trainings? Because those of us in the Pilates world, especially when we understand how to work the springs, it's all about resistance. So I'm kind of fascinated that you wouldn't interpret it as that, but that there are all these other aspects and qualities that you get from it, the mind control, the endurance, but not necessarily the deep resistance. And I'm wondering if you haven't felt it yet because you're so bloody tight.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Obviously,
Okay.
I don't have 30 plus years of Pilates experience to speak from, but I have been doing sort of standard resistance training for decades, and primarily to help my other sports. I think the mindset there is, yes, you have to have good form. Yes, you have to do the exercise in a certain way. But the mindset there is the more weight you use, the better you are doing it. But it isn't really about fine control of your overall body. Whereas in Pilates, it's quite often actually less resistance makes for a tougher movement because you have to have more control. And if you rely on the springs, for example, to bring the carriage home, yeah, sure, if you have three or four springs on, it'll happen. But there have been instances when you have put it on one spring or no spring at all, and then it's like, my abs are burning just getting the carriage back home. And obviously, you would not have this experience if you were lifting a heavy bar with a bunch of barbells, because if there is no weight, there is no weight training in the gym. But if there are no springs attached, it can sometimes be much, much harder.
Yes, that I agree with for sure. It's taking the mat work to the next level. That's why he said that the mat work is the most difficult of all of his pieces of equipment.
You know, I don't know how many ab crunches I have done over the decades, but I do mat work and I do like five little chest lifts. And at the end of the five little chest lifts, I'm like, okay, no more. I'm done. I mean, I would be doing like 100 crunches and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. But I just think that precision and control, that Pilates takes that to the next level. And I think the body responds to it in ways that it just does not respond to anything else I've ever done.
Did you notice a difference right away with your running and or kayaking and then also cycling?
So it's astonishing that I have been aware for a long time of how I have tightness and reduced range of motion in, for example, my right hip flexors, my left shoulder. I notice it in chafing I get on the bike, or how I feel when I run. And immediately I started noticing things loosening up, in movements feeling more natural, in feeling like I had to exert less to run at the same speed. And it's just gotten progressively better over time. It's just opened up my breathing, something which I have long focused on, but again, was immensely helped by Pilates. And it feels like, I know you mentioned this to me the very first time we met, but it's like I feel like longer and leaner and more supple. I don't know how you can stretch the body, but it just somehow feels like my torso has just kind of lengthened out and my legs are sort of touching the ground better.
Yes, 100%.
I mean, I will be, it's been less than 6 months, and I was pretty skeptical, but I mean, I was convinced very quickly.
Does that mean that because you're perhaps more relaxed in your other sports, that your times have improved?
So when you say that, so I in running, I race 10K road races, and I just did one 3 weeks ago, and I did the second fast. I mean, I won it, and I did the second. And I'm 53, so for me to win a race against people less than half my age, it's
Oh, so there's no age cap.
well, there are age group awards too. But I mean, I won the race overall, and I won the past 4 races I've done as well. It's my time 3 weeks ago was actually the second fastest I've ever run a 10K, and the conditions were not great. It was windy. The course was very twisty and lots of sharp turns and almost dead halts. And my fastest time was 13 years ago. So to be able to get my second fastest time ever despite the inevitable decline that comes with age, I'm really very happy that I'm able to do that. I'm still trying to get faster, and despite having been a runner for so long, to still try and get faster at this age, I mean, you need all the help you can, and I'm relying on Pilates to provide some of that.
Did you notice while you were running that your body felt different, more relaxed or something?
Yeah, if I had to sort of boil it down into a simple concept, if you're running long distance races, you cannot run faster by running harder because you can only run hard for so long. You can't run hard for 30, 35 minutes. So to get faster, you have to run at the same pace easier. You have to run more relaxed, more loose. You have to not be huffing and puffing. Yes, in a 10K race, you are pushing yourself, you are hurting for the whole 30, 35 minutes. But you can't hurt like you would hurt in a 100-meter sprint because you just don't have, nobody can sustain that for that long. So you just have to be able to run easier. And that's the biggest difference I have seen, that I can be more in the flow. I am not having to go I don't have to breathe quite as hard. I don't have to feel like my legs are burning quite as much. I just feel more limber, more relaxed. My strides, basically, the single thing that happened was my stride got a little bit longer and I felt more relaxed. I was like, when you're running, most of your time should really be spent in flight. I mean, if you look at world-class runners, their feet touch the ground, but as little as possible, and they have these long strides when both feet are in the air. You want to maximize your flight time. And that happens when you're more relaxed and more springy, and your joints can be, hips can open up and let you flow more. And that's how you get faster. You're not going to get faster by increasing your cadence very much. You're not going to get faster by huffing and puffing more because you'll blow up in 10 minutes.
That's why you have a yoga practice before you were introduced to Contrology. That was the intention, was to give you more flight time because yoga spends a lot of time opening the hips.
Well, that was my goal. It was also just to be looser, so to reduce my risk of injury. And yes, yoga definitely helped with some injury prevention, I think, but I never really felt particularly more open with yoga. And I think because Pilates seems to do is movement with some load on the body. And yoga is about static poses for the most part. I mean, you hold a pose for a while. I mean, maybe some people's bodies respond differently than others. For me, static poses can feel good, but they don't really have any long-lasting benefit. And what I like about Pilates, especially, is that it is dynamic. You're not rushing the movements, but you're not just holding something for a minute. You're moving. You're moving in control. And that seems to be particularly effective for my body and my sports.
It's well said.
Thank you.
When you first came to me, I think initially you talked about that right hip.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what struck me, and I'm sure a lot of Pilates teachers listening agree, that a client will come to us and say, I've been to a physical therapist, a physiotherapist, an osteopath, a chiropractor, massage therapist, neuromuscular therapist, and there's something that I'm getting. Let's say even just I put you on the Cadillac for side leg springs. And I think one of the first things you said was, my hip feels 100% different, and I never got this information from my physical therapist. Can you say more about that? Because this is definitely a quality and an element that gets passed over the medical profession, in my opinion. Hey everyone, are you ready to master your moves? I'm so excited to finally announce the long-awaited update of my 2 Studio Darien Pilates apps. You know, classical Pilates continues to take hold all over the world, and I was very determined to once again offer you a classical Pilates resource. So, my team and I redesigned these apps into one amazing app called Pilates Mastery. Included are the 5 original videos and an additional video, the first 7. Also 2 new parts, Pilates in 5 and my special series, Gold Talk. And for the cost of just 2 lattes and far more rejuvenating, Pilates Mastery is your go-to Pilates app, available in the App Store and Google Play. And now, back to the interview.
I think you're right. So, I mean, just in a nutshell, I have an impingement in the right hip. Basically, the top of my femur juts too far into the ball and socket joint. And so there's not a lot of space, and it reduces the mobility of the hip, especially if I'm trying to rotate internally, like turn the knee in, basically. It affects me in cycling, in kayaking, a little bit in running as well. It affects how the balance is between the forces on my left and right legs. So it has implications both for my comfort and my fitness. And I've tried decades of physical therapy and all kinds of pulling and stretching and exercise this and that and the other, and not a shred of difference. And seen a surgeon, they're like, oh, we can go in, we can operate, we can shave off the head of the femur, but it'll be out of commission for 6 months and it might not even work. So, and even the surgeon would be like, no, don't do it, I wouldn't do it. And I did not expect that Pilates would be able to change it either, because after 20 years of trying, why would this one thing suddenly make a difference? And what seems to have happened, I mean, certainly I can't say like I'm 100% better or anything. I mean, there's still an impingement, but what seems to have happened is that by training the muscles surrounding the hip to move in ways that compensate for that impingement, I have gotten more symmetry, I've gotten more range of motion. I've felt, even when I run or when I bike or when I kayak, I can feel like the right side of my torso lengthening. I can mentally position myself to have those muscles, rather than being contracted and all bunched up, to be open and more flowing. And that reflects in how comfortable I feel, how loose I feel, how easy a certain effort level feels. It's as though when you teach the muscles how to do things while moving, they seem to learn it in ways that just by pulling and pushing on them statically does not seem to work.
Yes, I think everyone listening would agree with that. Another thing that you had commented on, that you have had the great fortune to work with Olympic coaches and very high rated trainers. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And yet there was something that you were experiencing in our lessons that maybe now you think, well, how come they didn't do that? Can you say more about that?
I think that's a very good point. So, I mean, I have I have trained with, for example, Olympic gold medalists who are kayak coaches, for example. And I think any sports coach, they typically, they know their sport and they will do things that they believe will help you in their sport. But a lot of coaches, I would say most coaches, might not be aware of a full body approach to improving performance. And it's sort of like if you go to a doctor who's got a particular specialty, they only see, if you go to a gastroenterologist, they will look at your digestive system, but they will not be checking your lungs or your heart. And the problem might be stemming from something elsewhere. And so I don't think most trainers or coaches or physical therapists, when you go to them for a specific problem, are looking at a holistic view of the body. And I think part of the genius of Joseph Pilates is that he seems to have looked at the body as a whole and tried to see an interconnectedness. And you would not think, for example, that by thinking about the connection between your feet and your torso, you would be able to improve your kayaking, for example, right? But it really, it is amazing. I mean, the body operates as a whole, and what you feel in one part, how you exert pressure on one part may actually affect some part on the other end of the body. And understanding that is I think critical to maintaining and improving performance.
Would you say that your learning process has also elevated?
Yeah, I'd say, I thought I was very conscious of my body and how it moved before I started Pilates, but it's been taken to a whole other level.
Which means when you go back to work with your other coaches, do you think you're listening differently? You're absorbing their information differently, or have you already moved past them?
I think a bit of both. So I think there are certain things which they probably would never have addressed. But then also when I get feedback on how to pedal on the bike, for example, where the forces should go, I saw my bike coach last week, for example, and we looked at how I was pedaling, and his feedback on sort of where my mind should be at different parts of the bike pedal stroke, it just resonated much better now that I could think of the interconnectedness of the feet and the glutes and the hamstrings than it would have before.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Is there an exercise that I've taught you on whichever piece of equipment that has most surprised you at your inability or your ability to practice it?
So I think that's an easy answer. I have never, for example, done, so I've never really grokked how one would like tumble or how one would sort of just get the legs over the head. I mean, that whole notion of like basically short spine. The very first time we even thought about short spine, I was like, what are you talking about? How does this make any sense? You're gonna like yank my spine out of my body. And I thought I would be walking out on crutches or something. And and I'm still early in my Pilates journey, and short spine is somewhat advanced. It's just not something you do on your first day or anything. But with their assistance, I mean, just I have felt, other than just conquering the basic fear of being sort of
Upside down.
sort of down, it's just the way it just opens up the body and the way it makes you feel. I mean, I just like that is the one thing we must do every time. And I don't have a reformer yet at home. I've ordered one, but it takes a while to get it. I've been doing, jackknife on the mat, and it's just an amazing feeling to have. It just feels so. It just opens up the back and the torso so well.
But you didn't do plow? Is it called plow in yoga? where the legs are over the
I
head? It's like
I do not have
rollover.
I
Oh,
have not.
you haven't done that. Maybe because of the fear factor.
Well, I mean, I set up a program with a teacher years ago, focused on helping with running, and we never quite did that. And yoga I do is like basically the same program at home by myself. So it hasn't really changed over the years.
As you were saying in the beginning, that the more springs, the more assistance you get. So it's similar with short spine. As you advance, perhaps you might be on one spring. But right now, we usually practice it on two springs, and that's the support that you were perhaps missing in a yoga practice or just doing jackknife on the mat. So the fear factor of trusting that your feet will stay in the straps, the leather straps, that's a process right there. Because once you take the legs out and start to lift, you already, at some point, there's that moment where the carriage starts to move. And so the first cue would be to make sure the arches are pressing into the strap
Hmm.
as your counter. So that, remember when I would say that to you, so you would never feel like you land on your neck.
Right.
And you can, once you have the understanding of action, counteraction, then all the sensations you have in the middle of your body, especially that open feeling in the torso, that's how it can all play out because you have the feet, crown of the head, or the hands, they're doing their part. So you can have the freedom to use your breath and to have the suppleness in the spine.
Right. But it took me a while to believe that.
It's true. It's true. Well, if somebody listening who might be a runner, kayaker, cyclist, or all three, what would you say to him or her about starting a program like you are doing and assuring them that they will have this kind of profound experience?
So when my friend Dan was persuading me to try Pilates, my one of my concerns was, where is the energy? I mean, let's say I even have the time, but where is the energy to do it coming from? I'm already doing so much, and won't it affect my other activity? Do I'll have less energy for them? And you know what? I have been amazed by the fact that Pilates actually seems to be additive to my net energy level. We have our sessions on Tuesdays typically when I have a hard run and then a bike ride. And, I feel much better after the Pilates than I do before. And it's not just that I moved and I got loose, it's the actual energy level seems to go up. I don't understand it. It seems to defy the laws of physics, but it has been consistent. This is true even when I do it at home. If I do a long bike ride, I come home, I get on my Wunda chair or my ladder barrel or on the mat. I mean, I just feel much better, more energetic, just in every respect. So I would say if you are an athlete, you're looking for ways to improve your fitness, your injury prevention, your overall connection with your sport. Doing Pilates with a teacher who knows what they're doing, I think that is really something you should not hesitate because it doesn't actually take that much time. It, in fact, seems to add to the overall energy you have. And I just don't know why everybody wouldn't try it. And I hear now of, NFL teams, for example, making it a regular part of their routine. And I can totally see it because it is a form of improving your body and actually your mind body connection that nothing else I've ever tried has come close to.
Beautiful. So, people listening, athletes who haven't dipped one toe at all into the Pilates pool, maybe they will feel more confident now because I don't want to say you're just a regular guy, but you're kind of a regular guy who's a very strong athlete with a blessed body that keeps going.
Yeah, I'm not a genetic freak of nature, who was, I am not gifted with phenomenal genes. I'm not paid to do sports. I am just a normal person who happens to be into being an athlete. And I would say that, and actually funny enough, I have several friends whom I've recommended Pilates to. They've tried it on my gear and they're like, next thing I know, they're signing up to do it on a regular basis. It definitely done with a competent teacher. It is
Yes.
something that I would say you're gonna like it from the very first session. And it's not one of those things where you got to put in 6 months before you start seeing any benefits. It's literally the very first day you feel really good.
Beautiful. Thank you, Vineet, so much for your time and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
All Things Pilates is produced, written, edited, and hosted by me, Darien Gold. Mastered audio mix, Fabian Romero. Original music, AKA Johnny. If you're enjoying this show, we would love for you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts so you can let others know what you like or love about All Things Pilates. Also, if you're interested in helping to support this podcast, become a subscriber. It helps with the back-end costs that accrue when producing a show. To learn more about our growing community, check out our show notes. Karmane vadikariste mafaleshu kadacharam. You have the right to perform your duties, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your actions. From the Hindu holy book, the Bhagavad Gita,